Welcome to the Wrestling Replays. Kato here with the WWE Hell in a Cell replay for 2021. Now, we had a decent show. It was a decent pay-per-view to me overall. I will get into why I feel like that in just a little bit, all right? The pay-per-view kicks off with Bayley and Bianca Belair. Now, for me personally, I like to see which match is the first match inside of a pay-per-view, because that, to me, is one of the most important matches of a pay-per-view, because it's going to set the tone, it's going to get the fans hot, or it's going to get them rowdied up. It's going to really, make the show go into whatever direction you're attempting to make the show go into, all right? Now, only problem is we kicked it off with Bianca Belair and Bayley, who we just seen these guys in Backlash. Nonetheless, it was still a good match. The action inside the ring was really, really good. These two women did put on a hell of a match inside the ring, but to me personally, it felt like something was missing, like something wasn't fulfilling, and that's why I didn't make match of the night for me. It came in number 2, and I figured out what that feeling was. I figured out what it was missing, and that was the storyline. Bayley is supposed to be playing the bully role. Bianca's the person standing up to the bully, but Bianca stood up to Bayley week in and week out. It was never really a week except for one where Bayley started to laugh at her that, it made it seem like Bianca was kind of, doubting herself or down on herself, even though she's the champion, which is weird. If you're the champion, how could you be doubting yourself, especially to a woman that you already defeated? But nonetheless, it's the storyline that they choose to go with. So inside the match, me personally thinking, hey, Bayley should be dominating most of this match from start all the way to about where the ending is ready to happen, where Bianca Belair should start to take the heat and then go ahead and make the victory. But the match was kind of back and forth all night. Bayley did start off, on the offensive side early, but Bianca definitely got her licks in inside this matchup. It was a really good matchup. Only thing that was missing was, the story. Like Bayley and Sasha Banks, their match was so good because of the storyline in Hell in a Cell when they did it. That made you even more invested inside of that matchup. And that's what I was really looking for with Bianca and Bayley, but we just wasn't able to get that part of the match. So, hats off to these two women. Bayley took that KOD onto ladders to end the matchup, allowing Bianca Belair to retain her title. The only problem I see with SmackDown and the women's brand in general is what's next. Bayley has already defeated the Carmellas. She already defeated the Natalyas and anyone else that you really could go at her. So Liv Morgan would be the only person I would think that they could probably use next, but I don't think she's ready at all for Bianca Belair. So I'm looking more to something like Sasha Banks maybe make a return at Money in the Bank, or maybe make a return at SummerSlam, since that Money in the Bank opponent will be kind of waiting and picking their spot. And then you'll probably see Sasha Banks and Bayley actually rekindle that little heel friendship, in which they were actually the best women in the WWE at the time. So that may be the way that they will be able to take the title off of Bianca Belair. So look out for Sasha Banks probably being the next opponent for Bianca Belair in that SmackDown Women's Championship. The next matchup was Seth Rollins versus Cesaro. Another great match between the two, just like it was on SmackDown, just like it was at WrestleMania, and I'm just kind of tired of seeing this matchup. These two guys are great talents. They're going to always have great matches together, but it's just getting a little bit redundant. We're watching this match over and over and over again. Only difference between this matchup was that, Seth Rollins managed to pick up the win. Does that mean that this feud will continue? Meaning we'll get another Seth Rollins and Cesaro match? Please no. I mean, I understand Cesaro does have, the ground to say, hey, I think we should do a rematch. I beat you twice. You only beat me once. I get it. But I feel like that was a situation where Seth Rollins gave Cesaro the rub he needed to go into that match with Roman Reigns and make him a real believable opponent to be able to defeat Roman Reigns. Now that he's lost to Roman Reigns and that's over, Seth Rollins is pretty much taking his rub back. So we could possibly see a situation where Seth Rollins end up, challenging Roman Reigns for that Universal title at some point. So we should be on the lookout for that, because Roman really don't have many contenders to choose from right now on that SmackDown brand. But nonetheless, it was still a great matchup between Seth Rollins and Cesaro. I'm just tired of seeing Cesaro and Seth Rollins being thrown down our throats time and time again. Moving on to a more depressing matchup between Alexa Bliss and Shayna Baszler. This matchup was good in the fact that I got to see a legit wrestling match. I didn't have to see, Alexa Bliss change clothes 3 or 4 times during the match. I didn't see like Lily on the top rope ready to, jump off or anything like that. The only problem is the believability of this Alexa Bliss character. The Shayna Baszler not being dominant anymore has just gotten out of hand. I watched Asuka take the pin after pin from Rhea Ripley. I'm watching Asuka being no longer feared in that women's division. At one point, no one was ready for Asuka. Now, Asuka's just there for Rhea Ripley to continue to be on top and continue to look dominant. But Shayna Baszler came to the Raw brand, and she was absolutely amazing. Do you remember Shayna Baszler when she was in the Elimination Chamber and she ran through all those women, Asuka being one of those women? Now we have this Shayna Baszler who is supposed to be scared of a doll, yet she made 2 appearances on Alexa Bliss's playground. She even decided to stomp Lily out at one point. That went from a brave and dominant Shayna Baszler to a Shayna Baszler who cowered and ran and locked herself into a locker room because of a doll. Okay, fine, let's roll with that, right? Shayna is scared of this Lily and Alexa Bliss because of these supernatural powers. I watched Shayna Baszler come down to the ring not missing a beat. Her friends are in the background. Her and Reginald is made up. She gets into the ring with Alexa Bliss and you can't find a scared bone in her body. She's supposed to be afraid. You're supposed to act like Alexa Bliss has these superpowers that, you're just a little too weary. You don't want to touch her. Maybe you're looking around while you're walking down the ring to make sure Lily's not popping up anywhere. We got none of that. So that made it a little non-believable that she's actually scared of Alexa Bliss. Now, the matchup did start. It was a pretty decent matchup. I'm not going to lie. It was mainly wrestling until we realized that, hey, Alexa Bliss has mind control over everybody. She made Nia Jax smack Reginald. She made Shayna Baszler let her go out of a submission hold. Let's just give Alexa Bliss the title because she can make Rhea Ripley lay down and take the pinfall. What are we doing? What are we doing? Yes, I missed the Fiend as well. But we could have went so much better with this Alexa Bliss character. She could have, fought Asuka. She could have made Asuka come over to the dark side. She could have used the mandible claw just like the Fiend did to her to bring her over. Imagine Asuka, all black face paint, black mist. She could finally get back to being that dominant, who's ready for Asuka character that she was when she first came that everybody loved to see. But no, we get Shayna Baszler being scared of Alexa Bliss. Granted, we had a good wrestling match, finally. But this supernatural stuff had to end. Shout out to Alexa Bliss because she did go on to win that matchup. And I don't want to see her hit the twist of Bliss anymore, or you're going to at least have to change the name of that move to something else. If she's going to be on the dark side, give her a new move, man. Let her use the mandible claw. I think that will work just fine with Alexa Bliss character, but this match, it had no substance. It had nothing about it that makes me even care, that made me want to watch it. I just had to so I could talk about it. Like, where does Shayna Baszler go from here now? We have to get Shayna Baszler back to that dominant character that she was. Maybe with Nia Jax and go back after those tag team titles. Where does Alexa Bliss really go from here? Okay, you got the win over Shayna Baszler. That's who you made all this fuss about. Who's next on your list? This match would have been so much better if they would have used Lana as the mule that Alexa Bliss was going after. terrorizing that ultimate babyface character. It would have made it so much more believable. Lana would have looked so much more believable in this role of being scared of Alexa Bliss and Lily. It just would have made so much more sense. Maybe you cut Lana a little bit too soon because this role would have been perfect for her. But hey, I just hope we can finally just move on with Alexa Bliss in a whole new direction. This mind control thing is not appealing. At least to me. I don't know how the masses feel. You guys can let me know in the comments or the DM section. Now, speaking of matches that we've gotten over and over and over and over and over again, we had Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn. Another match with no substance, no real storyline behind it, and it really doesn't matter who wins, right? Okay, Sami Zayn wins this matchup. Awesome. Another good matchup between the two. You knew that you would get that, even though it was a little point where I felt like that matchup got a little, a little weird. I feel like Kevin Owens took a stiff shot. He gave one back to Sami, and I don't know. Maybe this is me. Let me know what you guys think, but it looked like it got a little real for a split second, then these guys got back on track. Either way, this matchup does nothing for me. What does this do for Sami Zayn? What does this do for Kevin Owens? Kevin, does he move to the back of the line that he was already in the back of anyway? Is this going to propel Sami to an Intercontinental title shot, which he's kind of been hinting at that he wants anyway? Like, where are we going? Okay, the heel wins. It's just no substance. Another good match with no substance. I feel like that's something we could have gotten on SmackDown and not in our Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. Now, just when things start to pick up, we get Rhea Ripley and Charlotte Flair. Rhea Ripley is defending that Raw Women's Championship against a foe that's kind of been haunting her whole career. Since she came in, she's been compared to Charlotte Flair. We also remember that great feud they had when Charlotte had the NXT title and beat Rhea Ripley. That has to be in the back of her mind. Even when they formed the triple threat match, Rhea Ripley managed to win, but Asuka was the one who set the pin, and she did not beat Charlotte Flair. So this is her chance, finally, 101, to go ahead and beat Charlotte Flair and prove I am not in Charlotte Flair's shadow anymore, but I am superior, or I'm on her level. This match was awesome. This match was amazing to me. Man, I don't know if I would have moved this to match number 2 now that I'm actually thinking about it, and Bianca Belair to number 3, but this match was really good, but the ending was horrible. I watched Rhea Ripley and Charlotte Flair tear it down, only for Rhea Ripley to be disqualified by doing something that we see people do all the time. Week in and week out, she used the announce tabletop and hit Charlotte Flair with it as she ripped it off, and that caused a disqualification. It looked like we was heading towards a double count out. I would have preferred a double count out with these two brawling and just not even thinking about the count. That would at least, manage or allowed us to get to another match where, hey, no count outs or no DQ or something like that. But to be disqualified like that, and then after the match, she laid Charlotte Flair out with a riptide. Okay, I'm just kind of confused here. Normally, that's when the heel is supposed to, take the heat back, leaving the champ laid out, leaving the champ wanting to fight that heel again to prove that, hey, I can beat you for sure. Like, what are we doing? We're just doing anything to make Rhea Ripley look amazing. I understand that you don't want Charlotte to lose any heat and you didn't want Rhea to lose any heat, but a disqualification? Man, we need some better writing on Monday Night Raw between these two women. We watched Flair take the riptide in the rain, man, to get her feet on that rope. We watched Rhea Ripley manage to fight off the figure 4, only for it to end in a disqualification. At least one thing we know for sure, that we're going to get these two women again in another matchup, if it's not on Monday Night Raw, which I'll be finding out soon, or if it's going to be at the Money in the Bank pay-per-view, maybe SummerSlam. Me personally, I think you should let this feud carry over into SummerSlam, so at least that way, you're going to have a really good matchup on your hands for that Women's Championship, because it's the same situation with Bianca Belair. With these women having 2 different titles on 2 different brands, it limits us from which women we really get to see to compete off with each other. I would love to see Bianca and Rhea, or Charlotte, or Banks and Asuka again. Like, now we won't be able to get those matchups until the draft night happens or Clash of Champions or something like that. I would love to see these athletes from the SmackDown brand and the Raw brand to cross over and compete with each other on the regular, which I believe that's why we should have a TV title for the men and a TV title for the women. Not only is that title prestigious, it can help propel your up-and-coming superstar to that next level. It's not enough titles if we was to combine everything back together. And with the brand split, we're not able to get enough matches to really keep the audience entertained without giving us matches like Seth Rollins and Cesaro 3 times in a row. Without giving us matches like Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, which we have seen before multiple times. Without giving us a rematch between Bayley and Bianca, like right after they just fought each other. So this would be a great solution. Please, if you're listening, TV title for the men and women, so you can allow your women to jump brands and you can allow your men to jump brands. That would make this so much better, so much more easier. Finally, we get to our main event, Hell in a Cell matchup between Bobby Lashley and Drew McIntyre for the WWE Championship. If Bobby wins, Drew gets no more title matches versus Bobby Lashley. That will make me very happy because I'm tired of seeing Drew constantly in the spotlight, constantly in that number 1 spot. It's been 2 years. 2 years. I'm over it. Sorry, I love you, Drew, but I'm over it. It's time for the next. This matchup was great. This was match of the night for me. This is the way you close out a show, almost. These two beat the holy hell out of each other, and I mean, you could see the physical toll that this matchup took on these men. You could see it visually. Their bodies scarred, bruised, beaten, battered, bloody. This was a really great matchup. Bobby looked great for his first time being in Hell in a Cell. Drew McIntyre was amazing as normal, and the only problem I really had with the matchup was the ending. It was a great matchup. Finally, a chance for Bobby Lashley to defeat Drew McIntyre by himself. No help, no outside interference. But what happens? We get MVP somehow making his way into the cage, and that's when you knew exactly what would happen. So Drew McIntyre looked to put away Bobby Lashley with the final Claymore kick. He had him lined up right in his sights when MVP grabs the leg of Drew McIntyre. They will not let Bobby defeat Drew McIntyre clean for nothing. Man. And more importantly, after he grabs his leg, Bobby Lashley managed to beat Drew McIntyre with a rolled up pin and holds the tights. Not the Almighty. They could have at least allowed Bobby Lashley to lock on that hurt lock and put Drew McIntyre back to sleep. A roll up pin where Bobby has to hold the tights. I understand he's the heel, but this dude is 6'3", 6'4", 270 pounds of pure muscle. He's the almighty Bobby Lashley. That's no way for someone like Bobby Lashley to have to get a victory. So I am happy with Bobby winning the matchup. I think that he should have won. I think he should have retained that title. I just thought it should have been a much better finish. I thought this should have been the time they allowed Bobby to actually defeat Drew McIntyre by himself once and for all. That would have been a great way to end off this feud, to cap off this rivalry with Bobby Lashley actually defeating Drew McIntyre by himself. Nonetheless, that's what we got to close out the Hell in a Cell. Great matchup. It was match of the night. These guys went to absolute war with each other. The results was correct. The ending, not the way I wanted it to get there. But that's what we have for our Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. I did think it was an okay pay-per-view. Wasn't as good as last year's Hell in a Cell, mainly because most of these matchups has no substance. None of these competitors really advanced the storyline. It didn't even feel like it was end of any rivalry besides the Bobby and the Drew McIntyre matchup. And also, it's like, hey, most of these matchups is either a repeat of something we already seen before, or it leads to those superstars in limbo of where they're going to go next. This felt like a filler pay-per-view. It just felt like, hey, let's throw some matches together. You know, I would have loved to see Roman Reigns and Rey Mysterio in this matchup and replace it with, you know, maybe Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. But this is what we got, man. So let me know what you guys think of this pay-per-view. Did you enjoy it? Did you think it was better than last year's Hell in a Cell? Drop a comment, hit me in a DM, or you can actually email us now at thewrestlingreplay@gmail.com. Let me know how you're feeling. Where do you think Bobby Lashley goes from here? With Drew McIntyre not being finally the number one contender anymore, Randy Orton locked into a tag team, AJ Styles tag team champion. Kofi Kingston did beat Bobby Lashley, so that could be someone who can make an argument for actually going against Bobby Lashley. And MVP has constantly, you know, came at Kofi backstage, so maybe they could be setting it up for that. But let me know who you guys think is next for Bobby Lashley. Let me know who you think is next for Bianca Belair. And let me know, what do you see between Seth Rollins and Cesaro? Did this do anything? Is this the reason or the way that Seth Rollins will get propelled to finally face Roman Reigns for that Universal title? I don't know, man. Talk to me. Hit me up in the DMs, comments, or the email at The Wrestling Replay on Instagram, at thewrestlingreplay@gmail.com, and let me know what you thought about the pay-per-view itself, all right? If you haven't already, please make sure you hit that like button, hit subscribe, turn your notifications, make sure all your alerts are on. I'll be coming right back with the Monday Night Raw episode pretty soon. Maybe they'll let us know what direction Bobby Lashley will be going into next. That would be very helpful. I would like that a lot. But that about does it for me. It's Kato. I'm signing out. Peace.